Hey everyone, welcome back to another live session. Wow, we're already in mid-August, and as always, the year is flying by. And so grateful to have everybody here showing up, have a good exchange. Um, it's always interesting when I do an AI-based live session. These sessions actually tend to not perform as well. Maybe it's a little bit of fear, and we don't want to spend too much time talking about the gloom or doom. But in our downtime today, we will put some focus into talking about whether or not desk jobs are doomed, and we'll definitely take some time to dive into that. And there's just a few concepts I want everybody to be thinking through as we think about the future state of work. So definitely something we'll tap into today. As you're coming into the live stream, always great to know you can see, you can hear me. Give me those warm and fuzzies where you're visiting from, etc. And I can always see the viewer count to know that there are humans in here, I think. So that's always nice. So as always, I always want to just take a quick step backwards before we move forwards. So yesterday's video, and hey Liz, how are you? Yesterday's video is one that I feel like sometimes when I provide coaching, I'm surprised that this information isn't readily available, or don't see it, or like nobody else is giving this opinion, which is fun for me. So yesterday's video is all about the interviewer's agenda. And so one of the biggest challenges I see in job interviews is there is a lot of advice and guidance out there to take control of the interview. And sure, in some cases that works. But then there's the other personality type. And so we cannot always take control of an interview when the personality type is completionist, or the personality type is they don't like when you mess with their agenda. Yesterday's video was pretty short, but sometimes we go into an interview and we really try to push our agenda, and a lot of interviewers don't like that. And so the coaching to like flip it on them and ask what their needs are and what they want, that doesn't work with a lot of interviewers. And so that coaching can sometimes work against us. And remember, if we're trying to switch and flip the interview in our favor and dominate and drive the interview early on, that could create a negative first impression that we never get back. So it came up. I had a small speaking engagement last week, and it came up, and people really enjoyed that subject. So it's why I wanted to create it over the weekend and ship it yesterday. So if this is your first time here, my name is Jeff H. Sipe. My business is practiceinterviews.com. And as you can see, app.practiceinterviews.com. I don't know how to tap into emotion on this piece well enough, but it's free. I mean, if you want to use it and try it and see whether it's valuable for you, it's free. I don't think that there's anything else emotionally I can tap into. Free is free. And if you're here, you're probably practicing some interview skills. So definitely check out our app. Still doing one-on-one interview coaching and negotiation coaching. I am strongly considering dropping the career strategy piece. I'm not sure how engaged I am still on the resume and LinkedIn stuff, even though I still think LinkedIn is everybody's missing piece of the puzzle. It's so annoying to hear, but it's just crazy for me to go on that platform and see all the mistakes. And there's so many opportunities, right? We just spend so much time applying for jobs and putting forth all this effort when if our LinkedIn profile was great, we could be found. And obviously I still have that great interview mastery course. And I did reduce the price, and I will be doing some sales obviously as we come into the fall and hit Black Friday. So if you like what I'm doing today, smash that like button. If you've never subscribed, I go live at 9 a.m. Pacific time every Tuesday. New original long form content every Monday, and I need to continue to push shorts. And I'm going to start putting out some polls. And this is just a question for the live audience that I might bring up a few more times. The engagement on the long form videos is dramatically dropping off. Do people just want to see short form content from me? So that's something that I'll be looking for as well. Okay, in our downtime, we will be talking about are desk jobs doomed? Let's dive into questions. I'm here to help. This is a general Q&A. We're here to cover everything. I show up once a week for you guys. And so, yeah, let's do it. Let's have some fun. Hey, Liz, good to see you and hear you. Okay. And Daphne from Miami, thank you too for showing up every week. It's just amazing that you're always here and such strong contributors to this community. I literally, I could not do it without the two of you, especially over the last, I don't know, 9 to 12 months at least. The two of you have kept the engagement really high, and I'm super, super grateful for both of you. Hey, Jeff, big fan. Thank you. I have a first round open-ended behavioral interview with a data center infrastructure company as a QE. Okay. What are your go-to tips for behavioral and open-ended ones? First round open-ended. So open-ended / behavioral, right? Hypothetical and behavioral are obviously two separate kinds of questions. So go-to tips, and this is great, and really good to reiterate these concepts. So on the behavioral side, STAR method, okay? But within the STAR method, so much of the biggest mistake with the STAR method always is that it's not specific context that your audience would understand. Set the tone with your audience very simplistically. Speak to them at the 5th grade level, but give them those specifics fast in your actions. What did you do? Supported by how did you do it? What did you do? Supported by how did you do it? The how is the magic piece of the puzzle. The how is the storytelling component. The how creates the visuals that get them picturing you in the role. And then nobody recommends a book or movie where the ending is bad. Your results have to be powerful. They have to be strong. They have to end the story. And so really strong results. Now, on the hypothetical side, I recommend the CFAST method, which means we get a how question, a what question I want you to imagine. We really want to clarify. There's so much ambiguity, and our interviewer has a lens, and each interviewer's lens is different. So we want to go down their preferred path. Clarifying questions really help. Closed questions, not open-ended questions. Then the framework. That's just a simplistic outline of your approach. What are 3 or 4 or 5 things you want to talk about? Maybe you want to talk about data, collaboration, resources, risk, requirements, whatever it might be. Set those ideas so I know you're organized. Then you make some assumptions. It's not sports or food. I can't picture sports or food. I can picture pepperoni pizza or the Boston Celtics. So just make sure it's very, very specific with your assumptions, and then you dive in and solve, and you don't solve for everything. You solve for components, and then you check in, and then you solve for another component, and then you check in. It's really high level. If you go to my YouTube channel and you go to that on desktop and you do the search feature, type in perfect. I have the perfect behavioral interview formula and the perfect hypothetical formula. Also within the app, I've built some simplistic videos to map this out as well. I hope that helps. Thanks all for your videos. Ferris from Arkansas. Awesome. I hope it's not too hot there. Seems like it's been hot everywhere. Obviously, we're in Southern California. We get a little lucky with our weather. Hey, Jeff, I really find your videos helpful. Thank you so much. I mean, look, this is the great thing about doing these live sessions is it's all general Q&A. It's all positivity. It's all guidance, right? Let's learn, let's adapt, let's grow, because obviously the market's pretty tough. So thank you so much for the positive feedback. And I will just kind of continue to prompt throughout this session, like, what do people like more? Are we ready to drop long form content and go to all short form content? So as you're looking through my content, I've done so much long form content. Should I push more towards shorts? Just a question I'll keep bringing up today. Jeff, I don't think I could keep on without you. Awesome. It really helps me with consistency and drive to be held accountable, though I don't have any specific questions today. We'll see. We'll see, Liz. I think you can come up with some questions. I'm not applying this month. Amazing. Holding myself back, and that's allocating time to giving valuable stuff to others, building projects, prepping for coding interviews this autumn. So It's guidance and advice that if this is your first time here, or if you've been here multiple times and it just hasn't resonated, the applying game is done. I mean, it's over. We need to stop applying to jobs and start getting creative. And it's like, oh, it sounds terrible. It's hard. Anything that's hard is worth doing, right? And so it's just a constant reminder, what would happen if you literally couldn't apply? How creative would you get? And so it's just something I want everybody to be thinking about. Appreciate the knowledge and detail of your long form videos. Okay. All right. That's helpful. I mean, I don't see myself stopping doing them. It's just the engagement is so low that and they take time. So it's just something to note. Thank you for that, Daphne. Hey Jeff, any tips for a phone interview at Amazon for sales? 100%. Have great stories prepared. I mean, Amazon is a behavioral shop. Outside of technical roles, really, they're only going to ask behavioral questions. It's definitely okay to ask your recruiter, and a great question to ask your recruiter at Amazon is, will this interview be focusing in on any specific principles? Right. So that will give you an idea of like what principles they want to go after. And by the way, like those questions have been asked for so many years, you can usually source them online. Have great stories. Remember, set the context, your role and company. Then two sentences on the challenge, 5th grade level, but specific. Then set the timeline. Then it's all what's and how's. What did you do? So we talked about this once. So let's give more depth to it. So what are your what's and how's? Well, in a behavioral answer, it's almost always the same. It's data, research, conversations, planning. Almost always starting there. So what'd you do in those stages and how'd you do it? Then we got to test and execute. What did we do and how did we do it? And then we got to launch, present, document. What did we do and how did we do it? And with sales, testing and execution could be testing different styles with different clients. It could be doing different kinds of reach outs, executing on what we said we were going to deliver in sales. And then, of course, the results. The biggest way to think about results are the first result actually answers the question. Some people forget to answer the question. Then absolutely in sales, you need to quantify and qualify. And if you're going to provide percentages, they have to be backed by real numbers. And then the last thing is repeatability. And the biggest win was we took this sales process that I created and we shared it across our global teams. Right. So you end with that kind of bigger win that gets them really excited. But Amazon's a behavioral shop. So they're the only big tech company that pretty much only asks behavioral questions. Again, for some nuanced roles, obviously technical roles, they got to ask other questions, but it's all behavioral. So start building and creating those great stories. You are welcome. I have another phone screening with Google tomorrow for an AM role. Any tips? My first recruiter passed my resume to another one that may be a fit for my resume a bit more. Yeah, again, with recruiter screens for like an AM role at Google, like I'm not sure exactly what they can really dive down and ask you. It's really about knowing how your background aligns with the role, a great answer to tell me about yourself, why the company, right? And we're not giving fully in-depth answers during these screens because they really shouldn't be asking those types of questions. Most recruiters don't even know what a good answer sounds like. And I can say that because I feel like I didn't really know either when I was there in that role. So show up on time. On time's huge. Listen. Make sure you're doing really great active listening, but I don't imagine it's going to be challenging. Most recruiter screens aren't. It's only if it's usually a very nuanced role where the hiring manager has specific questions that they want to get covered. That's when it gets a little more challenging. And I know because I had one of those roles and I had to ask some very, very challenging questions. I also had technical roles where we had to literally check the boxes on whether a candidate could do something or not. And the second they couldn't answer a question, they were done. But That's not going to be the account manager recruiter screen. Good luck and keep us posted. You're right. I do have more to say. Oh, of course, Liz. And that's great. And it's this. I got so much time back when I stopped applying. I'm less stressed and I have more time for learning, getting certificates to prove it on LinkedIn. I'm flat broke, but having a great time seriously growing skills in an AI eng domain. It's always the constant question of, is what we're doing productive? And when it comes to applying to jobs, it's kind of tricky, right? Because it's not that we're never ever going to apply to any job. Now, of course, I still like the month off or the 2 months off or the 3 months off, but occasionally we're going to come across the perfect role and we're just going to have to apply. And that makes sense. But just applying all the time, it does consume quite a bit of time and energy, a lot of disappointment, and that can mentally wear us down. And then we show up at we do our normal routine when we're looking for a job, and we wake up, we work out, we drink our coffee, we go for a walk, and then we get to it or whatever we do. And then we're like, oh, I got to go through this again. And it's a mental drain to keep applying and not get responses, not get feedback. Switch it up, engage with people, give first. And if I was in job search, the best way to engage and give your time is on LinkedIn, right? It's just a great use of time. You're going to get hits. You're going to get more engagement there. You're going to get more creative. And here's another reminder. So there's this networking event down the street from my office. I'm in kind of like I'm at the beach, but it's pretty urban, right? So it's at this bar. Ironically, I used to work in that location. Well, that's a long other story, and like, I don't really want to go to this networking event, quite honestly, because I'm not trying to network to find a job. And I know everybody there is, and they're going to be desperate, which is totally understandable. So it's uncomfortable. I don't really want to go. So I should really go. And I should go and I should just give. And I should just go help. Like, if I go to that networking event, I guarantee you I can help 10 people at that event and ask for nothing because I don't need anything from them. I can help them with their LinkedIn. I can talk about job search strategies. So I should really go. And it's uncomfortable because again, I'm not in their place, but that's the point. The point is continuing to do uncomfortable things because you just never know. I might go to that networking event and one of these people might have a friend who's running a similar business and it's a partnership, or they know their college needs an AI tool or whatever it may be. We just don't know. And applying, we know it's pretty much a closed door. Occasionally a door will open, but with the networking component and getting back to even more face-to-face networking, it's helpful. And I just want to throw in a quick tip here. If you are going to networking events, I strongly encourage you to try going to one networking event and just giving. And when people are like, how can I help you? And no, I'm not here to do that tonight. I'm here to just help others. And if I need something in the future, I'm sure I'll be able to ask you, no problem, but let's just help you. Go to a networking event, try and go help everybody. You will be the most remembered person in there, hands down, and you'll get the most responses. They're not going to remember anybody else. They're going to remember the person who went in and helped. Try it. I mean, what's the worst thing that would happen? I mean, we've all seen it, right? These networking events, and you go and everybody's desperate, which is understandable, especially in today's job market. And then everybody's just going and talking about the desperation. And then they walk out of the event and they don't feel invigorated or excited. They didn't get any advice. They didn't make any real meaningful connections. So I love that tip. And if I go to this thing on Thursday, which I think I'm going to do, that's what I'm going to do. Hey, Jeff, thanks for your videos. You're welcome. I aced my hiring manager interview with Google last week. Next week, I have the G&L and GCA interviews. I'm really grateful with you sharing the knowledge. Amazing. Always my tips with those two interviews. The G&L interview, there's just a huge misconception that that's a totally behavioral interview. Like, you just have no idea what's coming your way. So be ready for anything. And then in the GCA interview, wear the hat of the role. Just get into the role. And by the way, like, I talk about that a lot for the GCA interview, but like, holistically, You really need to go into the job interview wearing the hat of the role, thinking like the role, planning like you're already in the role. It will be an absolute game changer. People are they're disconnecting from that component. So they're not going into the interview feeling like they're already in the role. But if you get in that mindset, it will totally expand your creativity and make you more engaging and interesting with your audience. Thank you, Jeff. Checking in from Seattle. Amazing. One of my absolute favorite cities. I have the first interview with the Amazon hiring manager. Curious your content and guidance on managing the call. Keats, with Amazon, this is one of those where, like yesterday's video, I think is extremely important. Amazon is on a very rigid script and a very rigid agenda. And so like breaking from that agenda can absolutely crush us. Your hiring manager interview, it's going to be a behavioral interview. Unless you're going after like an engineering role, it's going to be behavioral questions. Your recruiter should absolutely 100% be telling you the leadership principles that the hiring manager is going to focus on. If you didn't ask that question, ask it now. Send that email now. Hey, can you tell me what principles they'll focus on? It will just help lead and guide you with your stories. But just with your stories, make sure you're getting into the how. They simply cannot connect with your answers if you just give them all what's. I did what, followed by I did what, followed by I did what. Well, it's all gone, right? I did what, and then I did what by doing how, and how. Get to that how level. It's cognitive psychology. This is not my opinion. This is factual. When we define the how, we're more memorable, more hireable. It's a pretty simple chain. And good luck. One more question, please. Any tips for longer interviews, 45 minutes, 1 hour with a technical person? Oh, yeah. So you're going after technical QE. Breathe. Go slow. Have a water bottle or a big thing of water so that, like just, get parched, because that can be a thing. Like your physical setup during the longer interviews is important. Obviously, going to the bathroom right beforehand is also good, but just a little bit of space and time in longer interviews, maybe a little bit more space when questions come in. I'm going to take a minute to gather my thoughts. Not all interviewers love when we go a little slower, but when we take our time to gather our thoughts, our interview answers are always better. So just something else to keep in mind. But it's pretty standard for interviews to be sometimes 45 minutes or an hour. And by the way, that doesn't match with brain functionality, meaning most of us, our brains work really well in short stints, like 20 minutes, 25 minutes, not 45 minutes or an hour. All interviews should probably be more like 30 minutes. That would work best for brain capacity, but we know interviews can be long. I hope that helps. Exactly. That's what I'm doing. Networking and giving where I can and not expecting anything back feels way better than continual disappointment. Totally agree. It's interesting, Liz. I didn't even notice that you said that versus then. And by the way, also, I don't know if anybody's noticed this, but you don't need to spell check your AI conversations at all. Like you can fumble through the words, like it gets it, which is amazing. So I stopped editing my spelling when I misspell things, when I primarily use GPT, and I stopped spell checking it. It doesn't matter. It gets what you're saying. So it's super, super interesting. And by the way we read words, right? I think some people have seen this test. It's like if you get the core function of the word, you can misspell a lot of letters, but people can still pick up the understanding. It's just super interesting. And yeah, so obviously no worries. Hey, is it preferred to post at least once weekly on LinkedIn or refine my LinkedIn profile keywords? I hear mixed feelings about the algorithm. The algorithm rewards only one thing: absolute ridiculous consistency. And like I could share my screen. I'm not going to, but I could. And what you'd see is, I think people see my following size and they think that there's a lot of engagement with my posts. It's incredibly rare that my posts get any engagement. It's very, very few. It's a very limited number of my posts actually get any engagement. Mostly it's like 3 or 4 or 5 people who like all my posts. They like all my posts. I get a few hundred impressions, maybe 1 comment, maybe 2 comments, and I feel like I'm giving gold all the time. But I stay consistent. And so like there is no set recommendation, but let me there is no set recommendation, but let me give you one. So I like daily engagement. So daily engagement doesn't mean you're posting every day, but post as much as you can and then comment and like on other people's posts. And I really got away from that for a really long time. And LinkedIn can be tough because it's like, I want to share all this valuable feedback, but when nobody looks at it, it can wear you down. But it's a content game. You just have to be massively disciplined with just putting more and more out there. And then there's the easy stuff. Absolutely, hands down, and I don't even follow this guidance, but I do mostly 1 poll a week. People love polls. And if you look at the impressions, those are 3,000, 4,000, 5,000, 10,000 when I do a poll. And then I put together this very nice post and it gets nothing. But the polls get great engagement. People love clicking buttons. People like making a choice. So add in some polls. That's really easy. Just what's top of mind for you. Like anything AI related or job market related. Like it's all very relevant. And so polls are great. And then repost people's stuff. People put out really cool stuff. If somebody puts out something really interesting, I'll repost it if I think it drives specific value for my community. I hope that helps. More is more. And yeah, it's rough. It's rough to keep and always give on LinkedIn. How do we know who are the hiring managers on LinkedIn? Should I be looking for regional managers and VPs? It is a fantastic question, Daphne. We don't know. So if we think we've identified somebody who might be a hiring manager, obviously we can do some research. I think we should just be throwing their name into your preferred LLM, whether it's GPT or Gemini or whatever you're using, and just dive in and dig in and see if you can find out more information, because it's getting really easy to get that info now. A lot of times we are guessing on the hiring manager. We just don't know. We don't know. So, hey, Sue, came across your profile, found this really cool article on the intersection of AI and program management that I thought you'd really enjoy. Have a fantastic day, Daphne. That's it. And we don't know if we're adding value to a hiring manager. We don't even know if they're going to look at it, but we haven't asked for anything. It's one of the trickiest things. It's one of the trickiest items is trying to figure out like, hey, is this person a hiring manager or not? We're just not going to know. So a lot of that's going to be guesswork. We can do a little bit of research if we're really engaged, if they're really high up and somebody we want to connect with, but a lot of times we're just not going to know. Love the long format. It helps me focus during the interview process. Okay, 2 positives on the long format. Thank you for that. Hello, dearest Jeff. Drop by to say hello and hope you're doing well. Well, thank you so much. The drop-ins are great and the engagement's great. Remember, this is a community-based platform. I love showing up for the community, and I think I hope what I've fostered is a positive community, right? And yes, I will do some gloom and dooming, and we'll talk a little bit about our desk jobs doomed pretty soon here. But again, we try to create a positive vibe, and tribes are really important. We want to create a really positive tribe. So thanks for being here. Appreciate it. For desk jobs in terms of doomed or not, nowadays I'm reading announcements from Microsoft, Google, and OpenAI that they encourage and are planning to ask employees back to work, back to the office. So do you think they'll take a step step forward, force employees back to the office? Yeah, 100%. I think that at the end of the day, a lot of organizations think that people do better face to face. And I would just say that that works for some people and it doesn't work for other people. But RTO will continue to be a thing. And here's what's not being talked about with return to office. These organizations have massive investments in commercial real estate. They need to validate and justify these investments. And so if people aren't showing up to work and they have all these empty desks, why are they paying for this real estate? Again, it's a little bit of a different lens. And yeah, I like human connection. I would do better in the office than working from home. Also, if you're in the office and you work at a company like Google, you will work longer. Why? The perks. I oftentimes, almost my entire time at Google, I rarely left until, I don't know, 8 p.m. I didn't want to sit in traffic and I could get free dinner. So I'd work. I just work the longer hours. So they know that, and a little bit of RTO, especially in the heavily perks based organizations, people will stay longer and work longer. Where at home, they can just shut off and they're at home. So I'm not an RTO fan. Just because I think that it's a very narrow lens to think that all humans work better in one type of environment. I think that's a very narrow lens. We are all incredibly unique and different. And it's just because we've had billions of unique experiences. So I'm not an RTO advocate. And I will trash these CEOs who are so aggressive with RTO. It's just a little bit of a lack of awareness, empathy, understanding, etc. You're back. Okay. I'm working for Meta as a CW for about 2 years, but manager and team got laid off. So here I am again. Sorry to hear that. How do you stay focused when the interviewer looks sleepy and uninterested? Yeah. So this is super interesting. So it's a little bit of a, I'm going to use it in a little bit of a different forum and just kind of see. So like energy, we have to be, when we're on video, like even for me, like I might come across as a little bit flat, but I am putting a lot of emphasis, a lot of energy into this. I am going above on my energy because it's not going to translate that well via video. And a lot of interviews are via video. So what am I doing right now? I'm standing, right? And so standing can put a little bit more pitch or tone. I obviously have a professional mic. I think that adds a little bit of richness to my voice, but I'm standing. I'm in the space so we can bring a little bit more hands in. And if it's going terrible, I call them out, but I don't really call them out. So what do I mean? Sue, I'm not sure that we're 100% connecting, and that's on me. What are you looking for? What can we be talking about that's going to get you excited about my candidacy? So like you put it on yourself. And so what was my loss? What was I trying to get to here? We need a pattern reset. So I'm going to date myself a little bit here, but like one of the best pattern resets ever in the history of, ever in the history, maybe that's overstated, but a pattern reset was with Ronald Reagan and Mikhail Gorbachev. And it was in the 80s when Russia and the US were battling. And Reagan and Gorbachev were in the Oval Office in the White House, and Reagan did a pattern reset. He's like, let's go for a walk. And they got up and they went for a walk. And I might be messing up this story a little bit. They went and went up for a walk. And then in the walk is where they were able to get aligned and start to shape things. So even speakers who come out and it's like, hey, I'm Jeff H. Sipe from practiceinterviews.com. We are going to help with your interviews. It's like, no, the pattern reset is you come out as a speaker on stage. You say, everybody get up and start dancing for 5 minutes or 3 minutes or 3 seconds. And it's like, whoa, it resets the brain. I know this is really long-winded and I've gone on like 8 different tangents, but sometimes we just need to do that pattern reset. If we've lost the interviewer, we have nothing to lose by saying, hey, Sue, I feel like I'm not providing the level of value you need. What can I do to change that? And then that might wake Sue up because you're literally bringing in that recognition. Interviewers are sleepy, uninterested, hungover, busy, distracted. They do not want to be there. Companies do not pay them extra money to be there. They're not incentivized to show up. So we have to have a little bit of that pattern interrupt sometimes. I feel like there was 18 tangents in there, but I hope it helps. Okay, my interview for the UXP GM is this week. It's for the GPay team. It's Google Pay team. I had some thoughts on where GPay's product focus should be in rural India. Okay, all right, cool. Which means focusing in on accessibility, financial inclusion, financial education for the digitally less literate. Do you suggest I cue in these thoughts in my HM round? If yes, how and when? Okay. This is a great question. Sometimes we have an insight, right? We have an insight into an idea. Maybe we've worked a little bit on our like 30, 60, 90 plan as we're mentally getting prepared for the interviews or something we want to share with the hiring manager. It has to come up naturally. If it's forced and it won't play. Now, when you get to the end of the interview, let's say it never came up naturally in the interview, and you get to the end of the interview and it's like, hey, do you have any questions? Well, I love asking questions about them. Everybody knows that. What do you love about the company, the role, the team, what's cool that you're working on? But if you really have this good idea, you can always say, my question is whether you'd be open to me sharing this idea that I have, because I'm really excited about it. And I thought it would be a really interesting topic for us to discuss. Is it okay if I share that idea and then you give the 1 or 2 sentences on your idea? That's the only way it won't come in as force. Now, of course, there could be a natural time to bring this up in the interview, but just play it a little bit safe, let them get through their agenda. And then if it doesn't come up naturally during the interview, kind of bring it in question form in the end. I hope that helps. I have 2 questions about job postings and recruiters. When I save a job on LinkedIn, do the recruiters see that? And why do DeepMind and others use Greenhouse rather than the Google careers site? Okay, so I don't think that they can see when you save a job. They may be able to see like total number of jobs saved, but I don't believe that seems like that would be a huge privacy and confidentiality issue. I don't have the exact answer, but I feel like the answer to that is no. I don't know why they use Greenhouse. Like we didn't use Greenhouse when I was there. But I think that maybe it could be because DeepMind is like technically an alphabet company, but I actually don't even know if that's a true statement or not. So let's go to this one. Greenhouse feels fresher, less crowded. Wonder if anyone here has had better results with companies on that platform. Yeah, so like what Greenhouse does really well, and I only know this, I never used Greenhouse personally, but they do have a lot of partnerships. So I think where they've done a good job, from what my understanding is that they have really good integrations. So however they've built their APIs, it's very easy to integrate with Greenhouse. And I think that's where they were maybe a little bit ahead of the times. But I haven't really used the product, so I can't speak to that. And why Google isn't using more in-house resources, I don't know. I don't know why they go out to third parties. They have so much talent internally where they could build this stuff on their own. What's your thought today on the best way to respond to the classic "tell me about yourself" question? Oh, if I didn't have a method, of course I have a method. I use the CTT method. So it's connectivity, time, and 3. And so, however, we can mess with those 2 T's, but basically I like super connected to the role. talking about our education or these other roles or these other things doesn't matter to me. I want to know why you're a fit for the position. So I also like to introduce the fact that I've thought about the question. So, for example, Sue, I've thought a lot about that question. And I really was able to identify 3 core areas where I feel like I'm a really strong match for the role. The role needs exceptional communication skills. I believe I have that skill. It definitely needs a data driven approach. I've had the opportunity to do a lot of data driven approaches in my career. And the last piece is stakeholder alignment. And aligning with stakeholders has also been a core function of my job over the years. Now, I'm happy to dive into any of those areas in more detail. And if you'd like, I'd be more than happy to walk you through my background as well. And so what we've done is we've connected it to the role. We've used the rule of 3 because humans struggle to go past 3 pieces of information. So it's 3 pieces that are connected to the role, and I've kept that answer under 1 minute. And then I've ended with the classic way to get around the occasional interviewer who actually wants you to walk them through your background. You've shown connectivity, but you've also backed it up to say, I can also walk you through my resume. So just why should we hire you? Tell me about yourself. What are your strengths? Use CTT, stay connected. 3, bring up 3 items and keep the time under 1 minute. Those are softball warm-up questions. We cannot waste a lot of time on them, but they're also first impression questions, so they're important. I noticed you're always standing when talking to us. Do you suggest standing versus sitting during the HM interview? Does this impact how one comes through? So of course, this becomes a physical item, right? There's evidence to say that, like, the physical can impact the mental. I'm not doing much. I actually have a bad low back. So at the end of these sessions, I do okay when I'm like moving around, but you'll occasionally see me kind of like moving a little bit. It's because my back gets a little stiff just standing in one spot. But I do find that I have more energy when I'm standing. So if you're physically capable, it's something I recommend. And also, like, my setup's kind of funky. Like, you just have to make sure the setup is aligned where my head is in the right spot, right? I'm looking at the camera, but I can sit back, the angle, everything. So there's just a few things to think about, but I've always recommended it from an energetic perspective, but I test it first. Practice interviewing standing up. As a UX program manager, how much of the focus is on managing the I don't know what that is, teams? What are some of the vendor management themes? Okay, so I think let's come back to this question. I think, is there a more of a specificity with your UX program manager role? And here's what I love. It's always a great point to note that some people struggle with abbreviations. I'm one of them. I struggle with abbreviations. My brain, for whatever reason, it's a hiccup in my brain where I don't pick up on abbreviations maybe as easily as some other people. So I imagine there's other people out there like me. So what am I saying? Just in job interviews, don't use a lot of abbreviations. Spell it out, and then you could, even something as simple as you could say, well, in this go-to-market approach, I'll just refer to it as GTM moving forward. And yeah, does everybody know that GTM is go-to-market? Well, yeah, maybe 90% of people know it, but we just never want to lose our audience with abbreviations. So again, I want a little bit deeper dive here on the position, and maybe I can be more helpful. Hey, Jeff, I'm applying for an ad sales role at G again. Failed once last year. I have a few years of sales experience, but not in ads or media sales. How do I make myself stand out or compete with other folks who have a marketing background? Yeah, so the ad sales roles, historically, it's more about your overall sales expertise and a little bit less, it's a little bit less about ads or media sales. But one of the things you can do is you can take a certificate on like Google Ads, like that would be really helpful. And you can kind of post that or present that really high up in the summary section, for example, of your resume, or put it high up somewhere in your LinkedIn profile that you've taken that certification. So that can make you a little bit of a stronger candidate, just because you don't need it, but it helps, especially when you get into the interviews. Standing out is also just on the resume if you're going to apply, which I don't recommend. I mean, obviously, if you can get in touch with that old recruiter, that's your first step. But applying, they will have you in the system. There can be an uptick in potential there. But how are you catering your resume to really be sales driven? And even if it's not product for product, demonstrating that you can sell anything. I know that's pretty generic advice. I hope it helps. Do you have any videos for giving a step-by-step guide for the Give First model? You previously mentioned tracking. How many times do we continue giving to one person? How many do we aim for a week? I do. I'm trying to think. It's a pretty old video. I will think about that, Daphne, and see if I can connect that video in the timestamp. So usually have my friend Kate. She does the timestamps for me, and it's almost always same day or next day. It's pretty close. Let me see if I can find that video, and I'll post it in the timestamps. How many do we aim for each week? As many as possible. And how often do you give? I would say I would give at least a few times before stopping. Give a few times and be different, right? So like one time's an article, one time's a video, one time might just be like a blurb on like, hey, I like saw this opportunity within your business that I wanted to share. You don't want to go like crazy, but at least a few times. Like we got to give. So mine's 8 times. So like the biggest thing I'm trying to work on right now is the B2B partnerships for my app. I want to build partnerships. And so I'm reaching out to people a minimum of 8 times and trying to give value every time. And then if I don't hear back after 8 times, yeah, I'll probably keep going. But so it's a little bit heavier on my end, but I give value, and then a couple weeks later, I give value again, and I keep doing that process. And hopefully, I'm starting to see the positive results of that. It just takes some time, but as many as possible. Like this should be your primary focus. And yes, I like just recognizing that we don't always know who the appropriate people are. Okay, is there another piece to that? Okay, so I still don't have that other piece, but let me try and go back. As a program manager, how much do I focus is on managing the extended workforce teams? What are some vendor management themes? So I think I'm a little confused because I don't know the focus of the role. So like a UX program manager, yeah, we're probably going to be working across a lot of teams. You may have some vendor management components, but are these things that are specifically coming up in the job description? The questions around these items will be, if you do get them, will be how questions maybe. So like, how would you deal with X team, or how would you deal with Y team, or X team has a certain issue, what would you do? So that's when you're going to want to answer it using the CFAS method. I'm just trying to think. It's not sometimes with these focus areas, it's more like, what's your holistic approach to working with internal or external stakeholders, and then narrowing the focus for the specific UX role. And obviously, as program managers, one of the biggest challenges is leadership without authority, right? So something you definitely want to be thinking through. I hope that that's a little bit better, but I'm not 100% sure that's answering your question. Okay. I'm transitioning my career from data analytics to product or biz ops. I have 2 years of experience before as a product manager, and it makes sense to retitle that role as product ops manager. Um, you can call your roles whatever you want, right? I think there's a couple things we can do. We can just call the role whatever we want on our LinkedIn or resume profile. Like, doesn't resume profile, LinkedIn profile or resume. We can call it whatever we want just on the job application. Make sure, like, and job application doesn't necessarily mean applying. You can get in other ways, but you're eventually going to have to fill out an application, and we're going to have to put that past experience, put that exact title. You can also put the old title in parentheses and the title you're targeting kind of as your default one, and then in parentheses the other title. We want to call out what we've been doing, and obviously it's just always important to note that you have product management experience, which is great. I think for others who are trying to transition into product management, it's not gloom or doom, but it's a very, very challenging role to transition into in this specific time right now. So a lot of people want to do product roles, but it's not that easy to get into them if you don't have experience. How do I handle questions on IC to people manager? I was a people manager, then I shifted to IC again and looking for a manager role. Okay, great question. So it's all positivity. If they're like, whoa, like I see that you went from a manager to an IC and now you want to go back to a manager. It's a great question. When I was managing people, I really enjoyed that experience. I love learning about my employees, really that human first focus, and then we can start to cater and craft plans and ideas that are going to make those employees great. And throughout doing that, when I went back to an IC role, I kind of thought, well, maybe I should see what it's like to be an IC again, really get my hands dirty and be thinking about, okay, is this the best path or is a manager path the best path? I'm getting too long-winded. And what I found after going back to an IC role was I really enjoyed people leadership. And maybe we just start there. You could say, I've been really fortunate in my career to be both a manager and IC. And when I went back to that IC role, I thought I wanted to get more into the weeds. And I missed the management piece. I missed helping people thrive and grow in their careers. That second part was better. And by the way, this is why we practice. Sometimes we fumble through it the first time, so we need to practice that answer. But I would talk about after you went back to an IC role, how you really missed and had a passion for helping others. Something like that. What does a strategy and ops role really do? Descriptions are usually broad and vague. Any certifications you'd recommend for that role in PGM? Strategy and ops is typically more domain specific, Daphne. So like typically you're going to be strategy and ops in an area where you have experience. And what does it actually mean? I got to admit, I have no clue. I think it is a little bit similar to like project or program management. You're not in control of all the moving pieces. It's maybe like a smaller component. I don't know. I mean, I think for like program management, I think that some project management certifications can be helpful to just talk through how you organize information. I don't think it's necessary though. Regarding the extended workforce teams, I believe design team works with vendors like research and is responsible for something vendor assessments, compliance assessments of the partner teams. Okay. And yes, your response clarified my question. Okay, cool. Yeah, I mean, again, like, so much of these types of questions is just your ability to talk about how you've worked with distributed teams in the past and how you would work with distributed teams, or how you work with stakeholders or outside of the organization, how you get connected on what are the priorities. Because as a program manager, like one of the biggest things you're doing is you're getting things aligned, right? You're holding people accountable. You're keeping things on time, on budget. You're constantly looking at the risks, the resources, the requirements. And so be thinking about all those items in correlation to how you work with external stakeholders, just more broadly. I hope that helps. Last question. By the way, all your questions are welcome. Never stop with the questions. What's the best way to respond to a question or aspect of the role you don't have a direct answer or haven't done in the past, but can be learned? Okay, so usually, like more broadly, the only questions we can't answer is a behavioral question where we don't feel like we've been in that specific scenario before. So then what we do is we zone out. It's something niche down, but it's really a question about communication, or it's a question about process, or it's a question about strategy. And I think everybody knows my default fake interviewer is Sue, so I always go with Sue. Sue, I don't believe I've ever been in that specific scenario, but I have a great example on how my broader communication skills helped my last team thrive. Is that a good example for us to talk through? And Sue's never going to say, no, I hate that example. Don't talk through it. Well, Sue doesn't know what you're going to say. So Sue will probably just be like, okay, fine. That's good. So whenever we don't know, we're just looking for the broader theme. What is the overall question asking for? And sometimes, again, that requires us just saying, I'm going to take a minute to gather my thoughts. Then you can come back. But we do not want to answer an adjacent question. We want to be honest that maybe we don't have that exact example, but we have something that's pretty close. Hey, Jeff, last week my global recruiter said my hiring manager would decide on whom to proceed with, but later he asked me for a final interview with a senior stakeholder, ASAP. Is it a tiebreaker? I don't know if it's a tiebreaker, but it's definitely a make or break interview, right? So, Peyton, you're just going to have to, whatever you got to do, right? You got to lay out all the items. You just got to double, triple down on your practice. Really, really get ready. I can't say whether it ultimately there's multiple people who they're looking at. I just don't have the data, right? But all I can say is you have to crush that interview. So give it all you got. I know that's very generic, but I hope it helps. I live in San Diego in Southern California. My day-to-day probably is not quite as organized as it should be, but I mean, if you're an entrepreneur who's basically like my primary business is I have two businesses. I have my coaching business and then I have my software business. And my software business is my primary focus. So I spend 3 to 4 hours every day doing sales and marketing. And then there's definitely at least a couple of hours in there of content, whether that's LinkedIn content or shorts or building YouTube strategies. And then a lot of the other stuff is app optimization, talking with my dev team, figuring out ways to optimize my business, specifically using AI. That's pretty much my standard day. And then I got to do all the other stuff people do. Like I do answer all YouTube comments. So comments, answering emails, and all the admin stuff that nobody likes to do. Thanks for that question. And yes, I've never been to, I've been really fortunate to touch down in almost all parts of the world, but India has not been one of them. And it's definitely on my bucket list. There's a lot of places on my bucket list and I want to go to all of them immediately. But yes, it's definitely on my list. And again, anybody saying last question, remember I show up for you, the community. So it's also really important to understand that your questions, usually it's on somebody else's mind too, or maybe again, adjacent, they're learning something. So questions are always welcome. How could I naturally work buzzwords into an interview? I'm not a fan of them, but they seem to be important to the interviewer. By the way, thanks for being so helpful. Absolutely. And I don't like it. So you and I are aligned. I do not like dropping buzzwords in. It feels extremely forced and I note it. I'm like, oh, this person's forcing it. I like so much more for the interview to have a natural flow. I can feel when it's forced and it sounds forced. don't force it. Do interviewers like it? Maybe some do, but I'd rather have a little bit more natural flow than forcing in the words. Just my 2 cents. I came across a comment on one of your videos. Hey, Jeff, my interview went well, but I didn't get hired because I kept calling the interview Sue. I thought this was a funny comment. Yeah, I mean, I obviously I hope they were joking, but it's people have some funny things. I had a really good comment, and I'll keep all the stuff out. I'll protect confidentiality because that's really important to me. But I did have a client who landed a job at Google recently, and their feedback was, I like to change names in interviews to be very common names. So Sue, Jane, and Bob are they're just my 3 American very common names, right? So they changed the person's name to Bob in the interview, and the interviewer commented, we have a lot of Bobs around here. And so it just kind of was a nice connection for them. And this person ended up getting the job, probably not because they changed whatever the person's name was to Bob, but it's just a confidentiality piece. So in a job interview, I would always change out the names, but that can be tricky in the moment if you're not used to doing it. Thanks, Jeff. My last round ended too swift. Recruiter asked me on Friday for a Monday interview. Just want to know the possibility. Your content really helped me through the final interview. Last round ended too swift. And yeah, like sometimes it's hard to, yes, of course, we spend more time with people we like. And there's personality types where people just get enough information in a shorter period of time, and that's just their personality type. So I don't want you to overthink that too much. And I never know the possibility. Just because I wasn't there, it's just I always kind of default to I don't know. But I do know that you'll see a lot of context online. It's always better if it goes longer. Well, maybe. But, again, there's just so many unique and different personality types. It's really hard to say. Hey, Jeff, thanks for the stream. Apologize if you've ever covered this, but do you see TPM roles evolving with AI? Do you think the role is a significant risk over the next few years? I think all roles are at a significant risk over the next 3 years. All roles, period, full stop. I don't think there's a single role out there that is not at risk. But I like program management and technical program management more than some other roles, just because there's a lot of moving pieces, a lot of humans involved. But if the humans are removed, then there are no more program manager roles. And that's probably a good segue. We're at a little bit more than an hour. We still have a good audience. We haven't really talked about our desk jobs doomed. And it's great that we're kind of ending with this comment. Of course, I'll take any additional comments. But one of the items, and Daphne, I'll get you in a second. One of the items that's really important as we think about the future state of jobs is I really like the matrix analogy in the sense that what if we could break down all those walls? Because I still think for many people that they're a little caught up in older conventions of time and space and how the world works. And AI is simply going to break down all those walls. And so now the stat is software engineers, so like computer engineering, computer science, there's a 7% unemployment rate for that graduating class now. And I would be shocked if it's truly 7%. It's probably worse. So what we've seen is the most employable, the highest paid job is now becoming it's going to be the most unemployed job. And that job could be the most sought after job in the world, could be eliminated pretty soon, right? And so as we're thinking about the future state of jobs, like I have a friend and he's in radiology, and we've talked through this many times, and eventually I was able to help him break down those walls to see that like maybe his job is gone in a year, because we just need to remove anything that we think isn't possible and think about everything that's possible. And then you might really see like, wow, it's not only all desk jobs. I think a lot of people think, well, robotics won't get there, but the unlock in AI will lead to developments in robotics that we can't even possibly imagine. So in 3 years, is every plumber, electrician, contractor a robot, right? Like, again, we just need to think in this manner. And so, why am I saying all this? This is like a lot of gloom and doom. I just want to set the tone for the future reality, which is very, very unknown and very, very different than it's ever been. And so, as you're thinking about the future state of jobs, how are you really doing your research on a daily basis with AI? Because that's not only going to be impactful for how you look at things, but it's going to be impactful in your current job search if you can be talking about how you're optimizing with AI, something that every employer is going to care about. I could go on a very long tangent on that subject, but I don't want to bring too much gloom and doom into this session. How do you compare OpenAI's PPUs compared to Google's RSUs? So I'm blind that OpenAI initial equity offers are 2 million. Have you negotiated? I have. And all I'll say is like, I just don't know. I don't know enough about the future state of the markets, right? Like, what I do like about what Google has done is that they've front loaded, right? Like, so the front loading, and like you're seeing more and more of it, right? These companies now are starting to front load equity. So I would really just prioritize any company that's going to give me 60, 70 plus percent of equity up front. I would heavily, heavily, heavily be pushing for sign-on bonuses, something that I never recommended in the past. Give me all the money now, because I don't know what the future state of the world is. And I don't know, honestly, that financial systems won't completely crash either. Like, I can't say that they won't if everybody's unemployed, right? So it's a really, really unique use case, but I am trying to push and get more and more money now because I don't know what the future state of jobs is. I think that might have been a tangent, and I don't know that I necessarily answered your question. Another thing, your leadership video helped someone who's been solely an individual contributor going into a G&L interview. Thanks so much for saving my life. Awesome. One of the most interesting parts of this entire journey for me has been the fact that when we really break it down and we really look at job interviews, there's such a direct and strong correlation to how we interview to how we communicate holistically. And so the communication piece, this is the piece that I would still highlight as the number one skill set. Your communication skills will make you the most AI resilient as long as we can be AI resilient. So the communication skills that I recommend the most, one is my default mode, and I've probably talked a little bit about this, is awareness. I have almost obnoxiously annoying self-awareness to the point where I know when I'm talking through things and saying things, I'm always aware of what I'm saying and what I'm doing. And that can be a little self-destructive sometimes. But when we think about communication, if we bring awareness in, then we know whether we're active listening or not, asking great questions, being thoughtful, etc. And so it's just been a super interesting part of the journey, is that our interview skills, really, if we follow best practices with our interview skills, it will translate to better communication skills. RTO is bad enough. I don't get how some places are forcibly requiring 5-day RTO. At least give the flexibility of a hybrid. Yeah, and again, like I think I can say this. I'm not really sure. I think I can say it, and I've said it publicly, so I'll say it again. I mean, it's a lot of old white dudes making these decisions. And like, look, this is not meant to be anything other than we're biased to what we've known for long periods of time in the past. And when CEOs who have been in the job environment for 40 or 50 years and spent the vast majority of their career in the office, that's what they know. So they're going to recommend it and suggest it. But that's not how the world works. The world has changed so drastically. And in just the last few years, it's changed so much. In the next 3 years, the world will be unrecognizable from today. In 3 years, the world will not even look remotely similar. So it's like we need to adapt for current times, not what's happened in the past. And that's why I find RTO to be incredibly challenging as well. Thank you, Daphne. Thank you for always showing up and being here. Thank you, everybody, so much. Let me go ahead and roll into my wrap up. And if any additional comments or questions come in, if you're interviewing, app.practiceinterviews.com. Hey, maybe you have an interview in the next week. Well, it's free for a week. Use it. It's free. It's just going to reiterate. It's me. It's not putting your answer into a system and getting the GPT feedback. It's what all the competitors do. They don't know what a good answer sounds like. We built these prompts based on all those videos I've done, all the coaching I've done. I guarantee if everybody who was interviewing got into the tool and really got into it, you would get better for a very, very small cost. So something I recommend. I'm obviously still doing one-on-one interview coaching, one-on-one negotiation coaching, and one-on-one career strategy for now. I have packages. We have that killer interview mastery course. I go live 9 a.m. Pacific time every Tuesday, new original long form content every Monday. Thank you so much for the feedback on that. I got to do more shorts. They're actually performing really well. So I'm excited about it. So I will continue to throw out shorts. A lot of it's like in the moment, like I get really excited about something and boom, I film something. I need to come up with a little bit of a better plan. But thank you everybody so much for being here. I'm just going to come and say bye to all these comments and then I'll bounce off. Thank you so much for being here. Thank you for the nice comment. Should I just get into private equity or hedge funds? That seems to be for now. For now. Again, let's remove those walls and think about what's possible in that space. Thank you, Liz, for always showing up. Appreciate you. Thank you, everybody, so much. I will be back next week. Have a great rest of your week. Get after it. Thanks.